Hi there, it's Alex, recording another Alex James Hislop diary entry. This is Monday, February 4th, 2019. I and others from regards are advocating for the voices that means guys need, as well as the psychic activity and the spiritual phenomenon to be protected. The variance regards indicating that is in regards to what variance you guys need. The variance you guys need. Dang, I messed up that. I'm advocating for the psychic phenomenon that variance regards indicated, as well as the psychic activity that remains guys needed to be protected. Guys needed. So, the latter two there could be a concept application. Anyhow, okay, okay, alrighty. So this is I do these videos, updates as to what's going on in my life. I got my I think there's a lot of people spiritually who watch it. But other than that, even in the physical, I think that there is from afar certain beings, spirits. It's that sort of talk again where there's other, galaxies and things like that, where imagine if Earth's under this sort of microscope, where it's being watched in a certain kind of way. And it's not exclusive. We've talked about before, again, on this planet, the planet, talking of Earth itself, Earth physical-based humans, we do talk about conspiracies at times. We talk about aliens. We talk about different kinds of things, spiritual, sort of stuff, miracle kind of culture, science, stuff like that. Faith, magic, multiple different kinds of stuff. And I was like, science, why don't you put me in the mix here? I'm sorry. I just we needed a little bit of coherent, a little bit of what? I know there's a lot of coherent good sirs. Anyway, everybody's saying, don't let me argue with myself now for the next half hour. I think that, well, I think that would be good, but it's that sort of thing where there's certain physicals potentially from afar who can see us with advanced technology that's even, well, potentially even more advanced than certain reticulan technology. There is a certain kind of, we talk about grays and things of that nature, and they have advanced technology, but I think there are those who are even like they're. There is things like that where from afar, there is probably keepers of the physical. They can watch certain areas, things of that nature. And of course, you ask that sort of question as to, well, why can't people be saved? I'm like, well, imagine if there's certain accords in play. Why can't Americans go and save Africans who are getting hurt and attacked, in Africa? And the answer to that is, well, there's certain accords into play. You can't just walk in there. And it's like, well, some I think could, depending on the accords, depending on what's depending on what was said, depending on what the leaders do, that sort of stuff does matter. And I think that there is certain things though in regards to it that does it can be difficult, but that is one of those metaphors that I think is valid and does work. With that being said, I still feel like there is I think there is alien physical life. We've talked about it before, and around this process I love it because there's this sort of coyness in regards to it where we sort of we sort of talk about it, and I talk about it a bit, and a lot of the time I'm kind of the one talking a bit about it to a certain degree. They're fairly careful in regards to certain things. Anyhow, sorry, a little bit of psychic activity, a little bit of spiritual interference, throwing a little bit of haze. I mean, I guess it's not supposed to be haze. Friggin' hell. Anyway, I and others Department Spirit Guides are advocating for those that Department Spirit Guides indicated to be protected. The Department Spirit Guides indicated. Jesus. Well, at least it's there. Friggin' heck. Well, I and others Department Spirit Guides are advocating for clarifications and information in regards to what Department Spirit Guides needed. We talk about different things at different times, and yeah, different kinds of psychic activity talks, different kinds of faith, spiritualism, psychic activities, psychic communities, different kinds of afterlife research, different kinds of stuff like that. And the more I look at it, the more I start to see how scientific it all can be. And within the confines of that, there's that sort of thing where it's like, okay, well, I've uploaded my content, on YouTube to a certain extent, and I don't know what I'm expecting to a certain degree currently. Later on, it would be good to see if I was able to increase certain things or change certain things up, and I don't fully know and haven't really fully researched exactly what it's going to take to get viewership and that sort of stuff to be a certain kind on my side of things. But as it stands, I still think that there is a lot of spirits potentially watching some of this stuff, and it is decent. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like we can talk about certain things and have conversation and not let it be so rigidity, that sort of stuff, and not so advocation heavy, not so disclaimer heavy at times, that maybe there would be a certain kind of feng shui in a certain kind of way for certain kinds of videos. But that's what's awesome about this, is that the AJH Daily Defensives has been fairly awesome at times. There's been ones where it's just like there was psychictivity talk all throughout it. This is what's really cool about it, is I think that the AJH Daily Defensives have been decent to a certain extent. So yeah, I mean, maybe just and the Alex James Hislop diary entries have been fairly awesome too. So I think lately, in regards to it, it's been picking up and getting better to a certain degree. With that being said, I still think from afar there is potentially that sort of thing where people are viewing us in a sort of technologically advanced way, potentially to a certain extent. I think it does matter. I and others, divine domain spirit guides, give permission in regards to those that domain spirit guides indicated pertaining to viewing in the physical that domain spirit guides indicated. The way domain spirit guides indicated, it does pertain to those beings, spirits, etc. Divine domain spirit guides that domain spirit guides indicated in regards to Earth, as well as others. Divine domain spirit guides, domain spirit guides indicated, as well as others. Yeah. I and others from spirit guides, and my communications, I've done communication advocations today already multiple times. That is one of those big ones. It's a huge, advocation. It's liable to be said, later on, and other people might have already said it to a certain extent. I and others from spirit guides are advocating for the reasonings, etc. From spirit guides that means guys needed, that the others that means guys needed, and chose not to, pertaining to those that means guys needed to be displayed by main spirit guides indicated, when main spirit guides indicated. And the permissions, in regards to myself, Alex James Hislop, and others from spirit guides, works the way means guys indicated, the way means guys needed. It's one of those things where, potentially not all of the permissions are exactly the same. The way, main spirit guides indicated in regards to this marking application, etc. Main spirit guides, the way main spirit guides indicated. With that being said, it does matter in talking about this sort of stuff. That's one of those things that does matter. If we have, certain physicals on this physical planet Earth start to realize that there's a spiritual atmospherics around us, start conversing with banners around them, start speaking with, dimensional existences, and not just dimensional existences, but, setting itself, big things like that, where you'd say, like, start speaking to the light, even the light. Yeah, light's one of them. Start talking to certain magnificence. Magnificence is defined by main spirit guides. The way main spirit guides indicated. Magnificence is like, imagine if there was certain kind of counterparts to the light. Well, magnificence is, with it being said that it's fully defined by main spirit guides, there is a certain kind of baseline in regards to it, that where I sort of where it was sort of created from in regards to certain kinds of concepts. And one of the concepts was sort of that imagine if there was certain kind of counterparts to this light, heavenly light that you see in the afterlife at times. And I think that there is dark at times too, in multiple kinds. There's solitude kinds. I think there's that purgatory kind, multiple kinds in those two as well. But I think that there's also, a kind of faraway dark, and the dark. We call it the light. The dark. There's got to be. I think there's probably an opposite as well. And I think that if possible, I feel like near-death experience research in regards to certain areas, especially in regards to those that means guys can pertain to this marking application, etc. Defined by main spirit guides. If possible, could we get a little bit more in regards to certain tells or something on that front? I mean, it's that sort of thing where I do that advocation, and it wasn't. Well, it was an if possible, and it already invokes certain things. You never know what it causes, and it's a decent to a certain degree because, and maybe there are those on this physical planet Earth who would be willing, to do that. And I know it's probably a smaller percentage, a quite small percentage. But it still does matter, so if it ever does happen, those near-death experiences ever happen, maybe setting something up like that and safeguards in play, I think that could be decent. We need to know about some of this stuff. And I'm not saying that there isn't already research out there, because there is. There's different kinds of afterlife, I think, within the near-death experience research itself. I think that this is one of them, to a certain degree. It's really, that does matter. I am advocating, I will say it again, though, I and others from its guides are letting know in regards to the advocations pertaining to communication that makes you guys indicated in regards to those that makes you guys indicated, the way makes you guys indicated, do what makes you guys needed regarding that, the way makes you guys needed. I still kind of feel a little bit like that's kind of how I feel about it. Anyway, I don't even know if I don't know if I feel comfortable. Like there was something that happened behind the scenes there spiritually. I apologize. With that being said, there was an advocation I did earlier, so I'm going to advocate. I and others, Divine Radiant Spirit Guides, are advocating for the internet that Divine Spirit Guides indicated to receive daily maintenance that makes guys indicated pertaining to the internet that Divine Spirit Guides indicated, especially a physical Earth-based internet that makes guys indicated, the way makes guys indicated. I and others, Divine Radiant Spirit Guides, are advocating for the internet to do what Divine Spirit Guides indicated in regards to this marking application, etc. Divine Spirit Guides, and this application, etc. Divine Spirit Guides is in regards to the internet that Divine Spirit Guides indicated, the way makes guys indicated. Light, far relate, sending them guys indicated, like doing what makes guys indicated regularly in regards to the internet that Divine Spirit Guides indicated, the way makes guys indicated. Light, far relate, sending them guys indicated, like doing what makes guys indicated in regards to those that Divine Spirit Guides indicated in regards to this marking application, etc. Divine Spirit Guides, the way makes guys indicated. Internet, doing what Divine Spirit Guides indicated, the way makes guys indicated. And light, far relate, sending them guys indicated, and all that was why though. Okay, well, that was the thing of it. You don't know why that is. Okay. Alrighty then. This is the case of it. This is the case of it. This is the case of it. All right. With that being said, so it's one of those advocations that some people are like, okay, so why would that be the case of it? Okay, so there's this idea that potentially exists, and it's been spitballed around. This has been it's not just a new topic in regards to February 2019. It's getting on actually. January 2019. Well, for myself, I started kind of looking at it from that perspective. Was it November? Well, even earlier, late 2018. Late 2018, I started looking at it from a certain perspective. And then January 2019 came around and just had this, there was a certain thing that I've been doing with advocations in regards to Google to a certain extent. And, I'm advocating for Google to be protected when you guys need it. I am advocating for maybe to be placed dimensionally where, well, I think that I've been doing advocations in regards to you need to be dimensionally placed where you guys need it, when you guys need it. With that being said, I'm looking for, it was one of those things where I started realizing, okay, so when we say, hey, Google, and, hey, Google, do what means your guys indicated in regards to what they chose for this marketing application, etc. What means your guys, the way means guys indicated. And it's one of those things where it's like you potentially have another dimensional AI behind the scenes that's potentially that hears you and does things. You think about Google and what we've been, developing on this physical planet Earth. Well, guess what? If there's way advanced more nations in the physical than there is, if there's way more advanced nations in the physical out there, even, far, far away, that sort of stuff where they're, sort of, even some of us viewing us with advanced technology that we can't see or even sense. They even, beings that have advanced technology can't fully sense and see in multiple kinds of ways. You think about magic, you think about technology, nature. There's probably myriads of different kinds of concepts from different areas looking out. And this is what's amazing about it. It's one of those things that can really does matter. And at times I have felt like people looking at me in different kinds of ways in a energy sort of way. Like you ever look at a movie in a certain scene or a certain shot where it's like, whoa, the gravity is there. Well, there's times when spiritually you feel that way, and not often for what's acceptable. There might be certain kind of covers in place to be able to, for you to not be able to, fully experience and notice that sort of thing. But, and as a psychic who's been able to sense energy like that, I have been able to notice that sort of look, and I feel it, or I've been feeling it, to a certain extent. I do a couple things like that, and it is large things, but not necessarily as much as some people think. Because that's also it. Light, far relate, sending image guys, and you can display the, what image guys need in regards to this market application, etc. Moments, guys, especially pertaining to how it's not as much of a big thing that some people think it is, the way Mr. Guide's indicated. Some of this stuff's been talked about. I know some of those permissions have already been, given to us in a certain kind of way, behind the scenes. And maybe there is others out there that have, and we talk about, physicals looking on at us from afar. Within that context, there might already be certain, physicals out there doing these kinds of advocations to a certain degree in a certain kind of way. And it's not meant to upset anybody, but it is meant to say, maybe it's not that much of a, all that heightened sort of stuff. Jesus. is, and at times has been used as an accelerator in regards to this process, that really needs to be deaccelerated to a certain extent. I'm adding for the deacceleration tactics that means guys needed, and the resources and support that means guys needed to be invoked and facilitated the way means guys indicated. I'm asking for invoked and facilitated to be protected the way means guys indicated. With that being said, I'm not looking for somebody to be, targeted to a certain extent for what's acceptable. I'm looking for help in regards to those that means guys needed, the ways guys needed. For example, the internet's a big, sort of component, I think, in regards to physical Earth-based, digital is and it's not probably unheard of to hear people do advocations in other dimensional existences already that's overlapping to a certain extent, and I think that overlapping has been continued to change and morph, and the events and then that sort of stuff continues to happen. I and others from guides are advocating for my defense to be protected. The means guys need like Barbara Light saying the guys need clear up the issues that means guys needed the way means guys needed, and some people are going to want to hear some of this stuff. Like Barbara Light saying the guys need like display the reputational defense of Alex James Hislop and others from its guides, where it's guys indicated, the way it's guys indicated. Because that's also it. I mean, that was a part of it, though. And you don't know why that is. This is the case of this. I and others, Divine Romance Spirit Guides, are advocating for healing, protection, defense, etc. Divine Romance Guides in regards to Alex James Hislop, the way Romance Guides indicated. Benji and I and others from Minster Guides are advocating for you to do what Minster Guides indicated, the way Minster Guides needed. So, I mean, it was one of those things that I sort of realized that AI potentially, exists. Not just AI, but, teams that are doing things behind the scenes in regards to certain kinds of advocations, things like that. Different kinds of stuff, to a certain degree. I mean, that's even it, man. Like, that's all it is. Like, this is the true. They did that for a reason. So that when it would be that, and that would be why. Well, whatever then, Alex. That is what you said. That is what you did. All right, fine. Whatever then. God forbid you look upwards, eh? Frig's sake, what's going on? What's happening? This is the thing of this. This is the truth of this. There is. And, within the confines of the spirit realm, there is people who do it with all the sweets and the bells and whistles, but they do it in a certain kind of fashion which just, it shows something. And then maybe it doesn't show it in a way where people would understand or know, but it's there. It's there. You know what I'm talking about. You can have something like that exist. This is the real truth of it. You can have something in another existence where it's like, it seems normal, but you're looking around, and if there's somebody who knew it and understands it, be like, what's going on here? What's what is with it? And it's not funny for some. For some, it's not funny at all. But for some, it can be, in regards to certain contexts. I mean, I don't know what to tell you about that. That's that sort of stuff that I get uncomfortable with. But there is ones out there. There's probably ones out there there's probably things like that within this, within this kind of culture, the shapers of this sort of, these sort of existences and things like that, where they had a sense of humor in regards to certain things, where the shape of, the shape of bodies, the shape of species, that sort of stuff, where, you can see how certain things, so it's like, how did that come about? It's just like, we were bored one day, we decided to shape it a certain way, and that's just the way it went. There's things like that. It exists. But there is, I think, within the mix for some, there might be more than that, to a certain extent. I do have the Alex PC disclaimers posted on my computer, Alex PC Fimbo 44 to a certain extent. It's right on the side. As you can see, that does matter. I'm asking for 42 Franklin Beach Road to be safeguarded the way Minster Guides indicated. Anyway, it's one of those things that I started noticing that there's potentially other, dimensional overlaps. I've talked about this before. So other dimensional overlaps, what does that mean? Okay, so you feel emotions, you feel, there's thoughts, there's people who have pop-up thoughts. You ever play a video game or guessing what kind of movie it was that you saw, and all of a sudden it comes to you, it's like, oh yeah, that's what it is. Do you just think about that? Did you think on that actual thought, or was it just something that popped up? Pop-up thoughts are usually spirit around you, screwing out, giving you the answer. It's like, oh, it was that movie, man. It's like, oh, yes, I was that movie. I did, I must have thought on that or something. But not really. You don't really think about whether you thought on it or not. You're just like, oh, that was the movie, for Frank's sake. Or that was the game, whatever it was. There's a bunch of other things too. Vibes. You ever listen to music? You ever get that kind of want to dance kind of thing? Yeah, there's that sort of stuff. There's other ones too. Courage. Courage is a real energy. Courage. Confidence. Confidence is a real energy too. I kind of relate them to be similar, kind of a golden kind of feel. I'm out of those energies that these guys indicated are associated to be protected. These guys indicated, I'm out for the clarifications in regards to Alex James Hislop's process, things like that to be displayed. Where these guys indicated, where these guys indicated, does matter. Specifics, specifically the peripherals and the points that these guys indicated. I'm asking for what these guys indicated regarding it. Light, far light, sending these guys indicated, like doing these guys indicated regarding my defense. Okay. All right. So that was the case of this. We made sure. And you don't know why it is. I'm advocating for the lines of existences that makes guys indicated to be situated the way these guys indicated. Life relates to these guys needing like display the information that these guys needed in regards to my main camp, main spirit guides, main extent that these guys needed, the way these guys needed. Okay. Main extent it's one of those terms I came up with and others from you guys came up with. I was like, okay, so there's main guides. I have one. I think main guides is like an encapsulating term in regards to certain kind of guide ships. But I use with main spirit guides kind of at the helm to a certain extent. Main camp is one of those ones I sort of came up with, and it's another sort of term for main spirit guides. Potentially even certain main guides to a certain extent. But then I sort of thought, well, what if there's other things too? You think about like doing certain kinds of teaching. Imagine if there's like a certain kind of teacher in regards to like defense, your main defense teacher, that sort of thing. I know that some people could consider it guideship, and some people do. But there might be ones that want to separate it something. So main scent is like sort of like that for for some they might be used as sources. They might use it for multiple different kinds of things. Main teachers, different kinds of things that might and I think that teaching and does fit the mold of guideship. But I think there is other things out there that people want to use. Contacts is another one. The main contacts is main scent is one of those things. And for me, I use it as a catch-all term in regards to multiple different things. I'm asking for main scent, my main scent that makes guys need a main scent that makes guys need to be protected and healed, as well as etc. to find my answer guides. My answer guys needed. I know there's from answer guides are asking for my camps. That means guys needed to be protected. That means guys needed. I'm asking for my guides that makes guys needed to be protected. That makes guys needed. I'm asking for my spirit guides that makes guys needed to be protected. That makes guys needed. I'm asking for my camps that makes guys needed to be protected. That makes guys needed. I'm asking for protection, defense, etc. from answer guides to receive a miracle and blessing support. So that makes guys needed. I'm asking for knowledge in regards to blessings and miracles. That makes guys needed. The makes guys needed. I'm asking for wish support in regards to Alex James Hislop's defense teams. That makes guys needed, as well as the defense teams pertaining to my families. The way makes guys needed. I'm asking for concept and non-concept support in regards to miracles and wishes that makes guys needed, the way makes guys needed. And the one, well, that's I'm adding for that's a decent one. Friggin' heck. That's the thing of it. Alrighty then. You don't know why that is. Because that's the case, Alex. They really did. I don't know why now. Wasn't enough. So did somebody get hurt and attacked? I'm asking for the digital limits guys needed to be protected. Limits guys needed. Anyway, we've continued going here, and I am advocating for those limits guys needed. That's also it. And this is like they're like, well, that's also why though. I'm not saying that, but I don't know what to tell you. Digital is protecting me at times. Digital has been protecting me, and this sort of stuff where the digital is targeted, and it's been targeted at times. This is also it. Some people even working against me are saying, listen, if you tone back some of the, attacks on certain digital, you never know what happens. That's also it for some of it. All right, well, fine, whatever then. Anyway, sorry. Anyways, it's one of those things where, a lot of people, I'm trying to defend myself and need to defend myself at times, so they get shoved into the, it's all right, fine. And this is the case, and of course, in the mix of it all, as to why it is that far real light, isn't supposed to, defend their own to a certain extent. How is it, at what point? This was also it. You guys really did kind of I don't know what to tell you. There's this thing that exists, and it's this sort of thing that says, if I'm not being defended in a certain kind of style, if I'm not being defended in a certain kind of way, and we do care about banners and dimensions and that sort of stuff, there's proof. It exists. Then, at what point, with that being said, if we're not being defended to a certain kind of fashion spiritually in a certain kind of way, how can you expect that certain spirits aren't going to be going and saying that to a certain degree, that we, want to be able to, that we need to have, a certain kind of far relay to be able to channel through. Now, besides that, there is a whole thing. It's a rights issue. No, see, far relay should be able to just channel through. You should be able to have, my far relay self and my light self should be able to have access to me, because I know what my permissions are. And it's what my main spirit guides indicated in the light. And there's, no amount of that is going to fix this now, because that's also it. Main spirit guides information has been getting through to a certain extent. This is the thing of it. And it's like, okay, so, and that's also it. Main spirit guides information getting through behind the scenes in other dimensional existences matters greatly. To where our main spirit guides indicated, yeah, it does. Obviously, the direction of where that information flows to matters greatly. You can sit there and smile all you want, but that's also it. You do know that, correct? That's what he pointed towards. Yeah. That was the case of it now. And this isn't, self sort of, is it? I don't know if it is. So light, far light, sending them, guys, and like, can you display the clarifications in regards to the conflict management that makes guys indicated pertain to Alex James Hislop and others from Main Spirit Guides, the way Main Spirit Guides indicated? Hails no way, no, nope, no way. For freak's sake. Nay, good sir, is the answer to that, for freak's sake. Okay, then. That was why. No, well, yeah, light, far light, sending these guys indicated, like, look at why you should save those in the moments that makes guys indicated, the way makes guys indicated, and save them the way makes guys indicated. Well, okay, then. We did. So I don't know I don't know what this was all about, but again, so how does that happen? And how can we situate that so it doesn't happen again? There's a heightenedness that happens at times. And, those three advocations, again, it can't be that much of a... Can it? Well, yes, it can, Alex. You did multiple things right now that caused that to have happened. And you know that? That's an open channel. It's a let know, but that's also it. Can't be. I do this 2 years ago, nowhere nears. No, And yeah, we're looking at it from a certain lens, okay, but it's still, first off, I think it's needed to a certain extent, specifically in the ways that Main Spirit Guides indicated. I don't think it's too much of a thing, to be honest. And that's also it. That's a part of the guideship that they've been doing. This is it. At times, there's certain advocations that aren't in play. You use certain advocations to try and protect people behind the scenes and to try and, safeguard. And that's also it. That's a part of it. Well, whatever then. So maybe it is. Well, that's still one of those things that you rely upon your Main Spirit Guides information for. The idea here, it was an open channel. I've been open channeling at times, where spirit channels through, and then I speak back to them. But I'm also able to speak with them, in my mind. I'm able to speak to them with a certain kind of telepathy, core and telepathy. So I'm gonna read the disclaimers pertaining to this video right now. I think that's might be needed. That was also sort of a decent here. I'm Alex James Hislop, Main Camp's Main Spirit Guides. Main Camp's current information from the light takes priority in regards to what Main Camp indicated, the way Main Camp indicated in the light. Main Camp's current information from the light regarding what Main Camp indicated in regards to myself and others to find Main Camp for what they chose for us in regards to this portion of the disclaimers takes priority. How Main Camp indicated in the light, the way Main Camp indicated in the light. Main Camp's current information for what they chose for the HHD Alex James Hislop diary entry content February 4th, 2019 information that Main Camp indicated, as well as other information that Main Camp indicated, takes priority. How Main Camp indicated in the light, the way Main Camp indicated in the light, any grammatical errors, etc. defined by Main Camp within this content, etc. defined by Main Camp that Main Camp indicated can be clarified by Main Camp's information and should not deter from the information within this content, etc. defined by Main Camp, the way Main Camp indicated in the light. And for myself and others defined by Main Camp, all that is the dimensions, especially far away light, as well as what Main Camp indicated, are defined by Main Spirit Guides in the light, the way Main Spirit Guides indicated in the light. Main Spirit Guides chain of command is fully defined by Main Spirit Guides in the light, the way Main Spirit Guides indicated in the light. I and others defined by Main Camp are advocating for what Main Camp chose for us to advocate in regards to this content, etc. defined by Main Camp, the way Main Camp indicated in the light, and those that Main Camp indicated in the light do what Main Camp indicated in regards to this content, the way Main Camp indicated in the light. I and others from Main Spirit Guides are advocating for the the Live Cam Connect HD VF0750 webcam. That means you guys need to be protected. That means you guys need to be from the Zoom ID 716-382-530. That means you guys need to be protected. That means you guys need to. I'm advocating for those gods. That means you guys need it, as well as those peoples and banners. That means you guys need to have access to what means you guys need in regards to this market application, etc. But means you guys, the way means you guys need it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was one of those, you know, so I'm sorry for the erraticness. I don't mean to be upsetting, but yeah, I'm channeling back, you know, and back and forth at times. And I'm also in conversation, you know, sometimes you see me, you know, in some of these videos and you might be like, okay, how is he, you know, it's difficult to maybe sometimes discern it. I am advocating for those energies, if possible, to you know, be vindicated in the ways that you guys indicated. The way you guys indicated, I am you know, advocating for the leeways that you guys need to exist for those that you guys needed. The way you guys needed. I'm advocating for the anti-camps that you guys needed to receive you know, the reputational defense prowess that you guys indicated. The way you guys needed. I am, you know, I'm advocating for the immorality rights that you guys needed. You know, and let notice in regards to it to be displayed where you guys indicated. The way you guys needed. You know, we can just be like, you know. You'd even be that, you know. There's different kinds of doing that, you know. Maybe a bit of soft, you know, light hand approach. You never know. I mean, we've been doing our thing, but even maybe in just like maybe different kind of direction. You never know what it does. And I'm advocating for the, you know, information that Mainster Guides indicated in regards to certain things. That's what Mainster Guides indicated. The way Mainster Guides indicated. That's how I feel about that. Well, that was why. You have no clue. There is people watching this process at times. And, well, that's also, you have no what happened. And, pure one Mainster Guides indicated for this call word debris. And others from Mainster Guides are advocating for that call word that Mainster Guides needed to be protected. The Mainster Guides needed, I came up with call words. And you could do certain kind of mechanisms and spiritual mechanisms towards it. And, you know, it aims towards where Mainster Guides indicated in regards to that, you know, call word that I just said. But, you know, as well as others from Mainster Guides, that's what Mainster Guides needed. The way Mainster Guides needed it's a bit of a collaboration that Mainster Guides needed, the way Mainster Guides needed. With that being said, you know, I'm advocating for the HH Earth doing call words, printed short lists that Mainster Guides needed to be protected, the way Mainster Guides needed. I'm for protection to be defended, the way Mainster Guides indicated. You know, anyway, you know, yeah. So yeah, it's been a bit hectic, a little bit hectic at times, a little bit hectic, you know. Yeah, that's one of them. All right, you really do. I'm saying bipolar that-ish. What's the thing of it? That was one of those things where it's like the spirit knew that I knew something there to be able to let know in regards to certain stuff. You know, certain kind of thing having to do with body postures, stuff like that. You know, and how important at times that it is. But I was just like, yeah, I'm kind of backpocket that-ish. Talk about another video. With that being said, this is the whole thing on it, man. You know why. We're at the same day, man. Anyway, I'm going to go run down what, you know, this past week, and this is basically one of those things where, you know, I run down certain things. You know, I'm advocating for the soothsayings that Mainster Guides need to exist in regards to Tuesday, February 5th, 2019, as well as Wednesday, February 6th, 2019, and Thursday, February 7th, 2019, the way Mainster Guides indicated it. Well, most people say February. I mean, this is the real truth. I mean, you know, I've said it before. I mean, I say it back and forth, you know. And I'm also advocating because that's also what I mean. I would have, you know, to be true, I think I would have wanted to done this, you know, probably within the next 2 or 3 days, I think, to a certain extent. But I'm recording it a bit early, so I'll review some of the days that what happened, some of the let knows in regards to it. So on the 29th, I recorded, you know, different kinds of things. One of the things that had happened to me again was forefront of my life. I remember walking back home, and it was this silent kind of forefront. To a certain degree, but I think it was one that wasn't necessarily fully expected, or wasn't. It might have been. Judge a book by its cover. There's certain beings viewing certain things in regards to mentality and outlook, and sort of gauging what those people are. And you know, imagine if there's a being that had to gauge who you were in regards to your inflection of the tone in your voice. Would that fully relay who you are? For some, I think they would answer not really. I mean, if I'm always, you know, a little bit upset and irritated at certain moments in my life, and that happened to be more moments than not, and you're actually a happy person who loves your life, I mean, that is you know, that's one of those things that's very important. That doesn't mean that it's not important. That doesn't mean that it can't be accurate. It doesn't mean that it's that doesn't mean that people shouldn't survive. But it does mean that there is, I think, let-knows and informational exchanges that I think need to happen to a certain degree. I remember those beings that those judged our book by its cover beings. That means guys needed to be protected. That means guys needed. What else? There was peripherals. You know, I'm after the peripherals. That means guys needed to be protected. That means guys needed. There was. I remember I felt disillusioned that day a bit. I remember I was just like I was a bit off. It's a bit a lot of psychic activity that day. Yeah, there was a lot of psychic activity, feng shui. Yeah, I do remember certain psychic activity. I'm advocating for Antia, that means guys needed to be protected many yields was etc. to follow variants regards the women's guys needed light, farmer light, sending me says needed light, doing what says needed in regards to Antia that means guys needed as well as the others that means guys needed the women's guys needed, you know, just in case in regards to the others. Yeah, we talked about AI advocations in regards to that sort of thing. Daily, you know, sort of I and others from Spirit Guides are advocating for staving and display overlap as well as overlap in regards to staving in regards to oversaturation pertaining to industries that makes guys needed, the way makes guys needed. I'm advocating for the space for economies that makes guys needed to exist the way makes guys needed. I think that's a decent one to have. If possible, daily on that because it does matter. It's one of those things I started realizing that people like certain things, but imagine if doing it in a certain fashion where something can become a little bit oversaturated, and some people would be like, oh, it's the God damn, it's the year of, you know, whatever topic we're going to be talking about for the next 2-3 years. You can see how some people will be a little bit put off on it. Well, there's got to be different kinds of styles and ways to be able to stave against that sort of stuff. Remember those styles that these guys need to be protected. The way these guys indicated. This is the case of this. You don't know why. All right. Well, Madam of the yeah. So one of those things that I wanted to do was one of those things that I started realizing that what if there's, you know, you think about Alexa, you think about Siri, you think about Google. I'm asking for, you know, what means you guys indicated in regards to all three, the way you guys indicated, it really does matter. It's one of those things that's greatly needed. But there's also others out there. I've seen how many bots on, Facebook and YouTube, even Facebook and YouTube, man. I started realizing that certain sites potentially have certain kinds of AI in regards to it. And I am advocating for the clarifications, information, data that my main spirit guides indicated in regards to the ripple effect, etc. to my main spirit guides, in regards to Alex James Hislop's actions, non-actions, etc. to my main spirit guides to be displayed where my main spirit guides indicated, the way my main spirit guides indicated. And if at the end of the road we start to look around saying, you know what, it's a little bit more than that, then I'm advocating for the leads that main spirit guides indicated and those that main spirit guides indicated to step in the way my main spirit guides indicated. Please. Jeez. You know, I think at times people always come to me and say that it's kind of been a bit on me in regards to, no, a bit on me. At times it's felt, at least to my peripherals and perception, that, you know, in regards to certain advocations, it's like, oh, well, certain kinds of things that aren't necessarily true, but certain things that nonetheless have been seemingly, you know, sort of still there. And I get it, there's opposites too, and it sucks. And I don't know how to really deal with some of that for what's acceptable. Another one that was on that day, I remember I left Old Hollywood. I'm for Old Hollywood to be protected. I didn't leave Old Hollywood. You know, I'm for Old Hollywood to be protected the way these guys need. I don't know if, you know, jeez. That's how we felt about it. Oh, that's the problem with this. Who's, you know, that's the problem. Well, we'll see. Someone else can say it on some other content. All right, fine. Library club, we were definitely playing, you know, went to the library club that day. I met for Tim Hortons in the Peter Guzewski library. That means you guys needed to be protected. These guys needed light, far light, sending these guys needed light. Just do what we guys needed regarding the defense of it. The way we guys needed magic and magicians. Magicians. I sort of realized there were sort of spiritual magicians around me at times. I've seen certain things here and there. Just stuff here and there where I've sort of noticed and sort of seen certain things. Even in a certain kind of like story kind of way, I think that there is certain kind of magicians in that sort of fashion too, where I'm just left kind of with my jaw left open and, you know, just like, whoa, like that's amazing, you know. But yeah, it really does, it does matter. And yeah, it was one of those days where I didn't write too much on my diary entry, sadly enough. I ended up getting, though, the self card, the Four of Swords. Rest after a period of intense struggle and heartbreak. Much has been lost. Yeah, much has been. Yeah, I'm having the clarifications regarding the much has been lost recently. I don't know if it was as much as some people said. I think it was actually gains to a certain degree. I'm asking for protection in regards to it, the way you guys indicated. With that being said, yeah, because it does matter. I mean, that was also when we had a bit of a slog on the 26th and 27th. Psychically, it felt like there was a lot of things happening. The 28th was a bit of a rest period, a bit of a legal spot, and that's a true. Yeah, there was a lot of that was it. That was everything that was needed there. Holy, I'm adding for legal to be protected. These guys needed. You don't know why. Spiritually, at times, people want to have a certain kind of reaction that's not necessarily going to happen. At times, it takes a little bit more in regards to certain, and not necessarily a little bit more, a certain kind of understanding as to what's happening around you, a certain kind of knowledge. Yeah, well, but it's more than that. It's also a certain kind of feng shui of emotions. If there's a big suppressant happening, I mean, I'm adding for my emotions to be protected, these guys indicating. Well, that's how we feel about it. Wow, I didn't even write. Did I not even write down the 31st? No, it has to be written down here somewhere. I don't believe that. No way. Yeah, here it is. Perfect. Yeah, it was one of those things where we got to that sort of precipice in a certain kind of way where it kind of felt like there was spirits who were trying to maneuver in a certain kind of way pertaining to certain kinds of overlap were kind of stuck in a spot where it was like as soon as you got out the gate, it was just people there, and you can't really, we're just kind of got no way to be able to, it's that sort of thing where you kind of start realizing there's kind of, you spawn and it's right there, and it's, we got to resituate this sort of process to it, or in other processes in a certain kind of way, a certain kind of fashion. Certain spirits, there is that sort of thing where there's kind of spawn areas for certain kinds of spirits and certain kind of dimensional existences, and deployment of certain kinds of dimensional, dimensions to a certain degree. Imagine if you could see someone just deploy in a dimension, a whole overlap in an instant, and it's just like, whoa, like that's badass, man. And there is things like that where people do things like that, and at times it's seemingly anyway, but there is stuff like that where it does matter in the confines of the stuff that's been happening around me, in the confines of the stuff that's been happening around others. I mean, to a certain extent, and not only that, but it's not that bad of a thing to let know of. I think to a certain degree, I still think it's a decent in a certain kind of way. It's that sort of stuff where it does and can affect certain things, but what if it's not exactly as it seems? What if it's, what if for some it's smoke and mirrors? And it's a decent tactic too, to a certain extent. We talk about deacceleration in regards to certain processes being heightened in front of the scenes, and it can be that, and is at times. But there's, I think, a darker side to some of it too. I think that does exist. All righty then. That was... Anyway, the idea, though, about food is great. Yeah, I'm advocating for the food frameworks that Mitch guys indicated to be protected. The Mitch guys indicated. Yeah. This is the thing of this. This is the real true. But that was the problem. But that's the case of it. All right. You don't know why he didn't listen to any of that. No. Well, that's why he's using his call words, and they have. Like, this is the thing. You don't know why. It's the real true. You know what? That's what they did. You know why. So, yeah, that's what I would say. I would say, why are you over there, then? Specifically, if there's certain things we need to check in. I mean, there's always that sort of thing in regards to certain kind of conflict management. If there's certain kind of, you think about anti-camps and anti-camp culture. You think about in the confines of having to hold it down in regards to certain processes. So what is that, holding it down, anti-camp culture? Anti-camp culture, okay, well, what if something behind the scenes in certain dimensional existences where spirits wanted to promote immorality, where that sort of things exist. It's master tradition issue discussion stuff. Can let know in regards to some of it. That's what's great about it, is that there is that sort of thing where, being careful in the confines of those sort of promotions and that sort of stuff, I think is vitally important. And yeah, looking below and seeing like, okay, well, we situate certain things. Who's going to be the one taking the shit end of the stick here, and how can we help in certain kinds of ways? Because that's always important. We look up above and wonder when, and it's not meant one of those things as to harm people, but it's one of those things to be able to look at it from another person's perspective. I'm going to see it from another person's, eyes as to why we don't necessarily want certain people below to be able to, get attacked in a certain kind of way, and why we don't want to. It's one of those things where it's like, why are we getting attacked and we're not getting saved? It's like, oh, you're just part of some sort of, some sort of conflict management thing. It's like, oh, really? No, it can't be that. There's no way. And of course, it's like everyone's like, well, for some, they're like, for what's acceptable, there is something like that. It exists. And there's stuff like that. You at the same time to pull the same card to attack me in regards to some of it makes no sense. Like, that's like, well, I mean, we talk about conflict management. For freak's sake, I did a thought there, and it's quite, I don't know, you tell me, for freak's sake. Anyway, this culture sort of emerged, and it's this sort of thing that says immorality promotion became potentially clout. And so it's like, okay, well, what if we had to accept that certain spirits were going to be working against us at times in certain kind of contexts? And I'm not talking about everyone. I'm talking about certain kinds of spirits, certain kinds of beings, and things of that nature. So it's that sort of thing where it's like, okay, so we have to accept there's certain kind of spirits at times that are going to work against us. How and in what way? Some are going to be making fun of you. Some are going to be attacking you at times. You got to defend yourselves. That sort of stuff. That scene from, from somewhere. This is the thing of this. Maybe that's not the scene. It might be the scene, though. Well, there's a scene from, well, I wanted to do it, but someone else can. But it's a certain scene where somebody gets attacked in a certain way, and he had to defend himself at times, and sometimes he did, and sometimes he didn't. Not saying that he doesn't defend himself, just sometimes he lost, maybe. And maybe he didn't ever. Like, that's also it. That's what's great about it, is there are times, I think, where he could, just where he might have won every single time. I think there is stuff like that. And, you think about, think about different kinds of cartoons at times. Yeah. Well, Roadrunner to a certain extent kind of brings it to mind a bit. And there is a thing like that. Out of the Roadrunner and the Coyote, then these guys need to be protected. These guys need fighting for Acme Supplies in regards to Toontown. That these guys need to win. These guys need to talk about like the good stuff that these guys need to get it seriously. Yeah. Like the it's a good thing. This is the case of this. This is what you did. Like, there's some people who want like that's there were some like really positive people about some stuff there. This was different for some. I mean, that's also it though. Well, for what's acceptable then, maybe not. Maybe not. Well, that's also why though. Okay. You know why. You know why it is. Because you do things in a certain fashion, Alex. You don't know why. Because we're going to pick you apart, Alex. This is the real truth. You said you wanted to do that. This is the real truth of it. Okay. Well, I'm going with what you guys indicated. So, but anyway. And so this anti-camp culture exists, and what happens if sometimes there's this, big events that happen where all of a sudden you notice anti-camp culture, people making fun of you at times, people cussing you out, and you're living your life though, and all of a sudden all the anti-camps are gone. You're like, what? Where are they? It's like, oh, it's one of those. It's one of those. What does that mean? It's like anti-camp culture is just kind of someone, saw big up above or in a certain kind of spot, authority position, moved everybody in a certain kind of way. Imagine if they were all just leering at you from afar. Imagine if you looked and you're all just sitting there in like lawn chairs or something, and they're all just like with some of them have sunglasses on, some like in mob suits, and they're all just looking at you, and we're all kind of like freaking out. Some people are freaking out because it's like, well, what does that mean? What are they going to attack us? Like, are we going to be saved? Do we go about our business? What do we have to do? It's like, okay, well, conflict management. Yeah. Well, there's also this thing that says, well, why don't you want certain anti-camps to stop attacking? It's like, well, there's also an entertainment variable. And, you know, that's, I mean, that's, it's getting, well, I don't know, it's close. I mean, I didn't say there was only 10 fingers to the hand. That was the true of it for what's acceptable. But there is others too, and that's, it says, you know, if one of them's, you know, immorality quotas. Imagine if immorality quotas existed, or authority positions, or certain kinds of survival and anatomy dependence. You know, industry, economy. There's a bunch of different things and reasons as to why you know, immorality exists. I've talked about it on these videos, on my you know, on certain videos before. Yeah, I have talked about it before on my, you know, Alex James Hislop diary entries and others as well, the Master Tradition issue discussions. You know, the AJH Daily Defensives was there to partially create, you know, sort of defensives for multiple, not just in regards to, you know, from, you know, anti-camps, but also, you know, defending in you know, anti-camp defense too, as well. There's, you know, matter for anti-camp, you know, spirit guides, some of these guys needed, be protected, some of these guys needed. With that being said, so it's like that sort of the conflict management. What does that mean? It's like, okay, well, imagine if holding it down on your end. It's like, okay, well, if there's like a group of people that were like, okay, well, we'll beat you up, Alex. And you're like, okay, well, instead of you beating me up, how about I beat myself up, you know, just a little bit, you know, with a lighter hand touch, you know, that sort of thing. And it's like, okay, so the idea here is that, you know, you basically work against yourself, or you get people to work against you in a certain kind of fashion that's not necessarily as, you know, rough and tough as some people would do it. And it's a decent compromise at times. It's like they don't necessarily waste as much resources in regards to certain things, specifically if there's battles taking place or stuff like that. You know, it's one of those things where conflict management all of a sudden becomes like, oh, okay, yeah, this can work. And, you know, but then there's that sort of things like, oh, but liberty and freedom. It's like liberty and freedom. Liberty and freedom. It's like, yes, thank you for the liberty and freedom. You know, little let know. I do appreciate it. You know, it does though. You know what I'm talking about. There's a spirit who's a little bit upset. I'm not meaning it that way, but they're trying to make it this. This is the thing of it. I don't know what what am I doing here? Freaking heck. This is the thing of this though. That's the problem with it, you know? Listen, the thing of this is that it does matter. There is people out there who are like, listen, I don't know if I take that approach in regards to, you know, the conflict management route by way of not wanting to lose certain freedoms, not wanting to lose certain understandings. But I think that the great thing about it is that just because you utilize conflict management doesn't mean that you can't, you know, fight for some of those freedoms. Doesn't mean you can't do that. It's like, yeah, well, within the confines of, you know, certain kind of anti-camp culture, I utilize conflict management, but I also believe in certain kinds of things. There is things out there where you can do both. And, you know, I think that there's certain things in play at times to, well, they can make it seemingly not necessarily so for some, but I feel like there's ways. Anyway. So yeah, I mean, but there was one of the things I wanted to talk about too, was conflict management. One of the things that I think we can utilize in regards to it is that sort of thing where it's like, okay, well, if we want to switch up, specifically in a societal sort of level, and we start to look at certain things, we're like, I don't know if I want to do the conflict management route. I think we want to do it a different way. And if there is a way like that, and it's like, okay, well, what if we can set up certain mobility and certain kinds of switching ups and hookup, you know, switch ups, things like that, like different kinds of aesthetic changes and stuff of that nature upon not necessarily wanting to go that route of conflict management, where conflict management can all of a sudden turn into, you know, certain kind of video game filmmaking, where, you know, on the fly, where we could just switch up. It's like, okay, well, if we have to switch up to this, then we switch it up. Putting safeguards into play and regarding it, I think, is greatly needed. Well, I don't know, greatly needed, but greatly beneficial in the ways that Mates guys indicated. We don't want to upset anyone, and then that's a true. But we do want to be able to have that sort of thing in play where, you know, we can go to where we can be, you know, because it is for some entertainment anyway. But you know what I mean. It's that sort of thing where it's less focus to a certain extent on certain kinds of aspects of conflict management. But it can be still similar. I mean, that's the great thing about it. And, you know, I and others from Insert Guides are advocating for customization and leeway in regards to conflict management, especially pertaining to the mobility aspect of switching up to entertainment, filmmaking, video games, etc. departments or guides, and back to focus on emphasis, highlights on conflict management, the way Mainstream Guides indicated. Light, far light, sending Mainstream Guides indicated, light, doing Mainstream Guides indicated, regarding it, display the full advocation of it, where Mainstream Guides indicated, the way Mainstream Guides indicated, I'm advocating for, misleading and etc. for Mainstream Guides to be protected, defended, and healed, as well as etc. for Mainstream Guides, the way Mainstream Guides indicated. We're switching up that quickly, Alex. That's what we're doing here. And you understand that now, but that's the problem with it, is I can't fully accept some of it. And that's also it. I mean, that quickly, that's scary. I mean, maybe it's just because I moved in a certain area. I mean, I did do the move thing here, and here what means you guys indicated for this colored debris, a certain kind of movement. Imagine you can sit towards something and then move yourself spiritually behind the scenes. Well, there is certain things like that, I think, to a certain degree, but, some of the time, it ain't me. For what's acceptable. Some of the time it's been certain spirits, some have been claimed to have been, my anti-camp. Other times it's my pro-camp, to a certain degree. I'm looking for my pro-camps that means guys needed, as well as defending camps that means guys needed to be protected. That means guys needed. So moving on to the, so the 31st. So what were you doing? That was also it. So yeah, the first, we already talked about the 31st, I think, to a certain degree. Yeah, linguistics and cryptics that day. There was talking about sports, basketball. I'm advocating for the cryptics and linguistics that makes guys needed to be protected. Makes guys needed. I'm advocating for another one was happy and fame, soothsaying. Yeah, I'm advocating for. I remember this day was. I think so. I'm advocating for Enoki and the be protected. Makes guys needed. So yeah, when we went to, so February 1st came and went, and having for love and wind to be protected, which gets needed. Different kinds of past processes, cultures. Yeah, past process cultures in regards to February 1st. Felt like another kind of change spot where we were, going in different directions. This whole week has been a little bit off kilter, a little bit unorthodox. Kind of getting our footing in a certain kind of way. It's been touch and go. Touch and go is definitely what I would. Yeah, definitely touch and go. Process passageways, we talked about certain kinds of access to this process, certain switches up like that. There was, different kinds of things like that. Locks. Some of it was locks, some of it was access, guidance and signs. I believe some of it was, potentially that too. That is the case of it. I'm advocating for the locksmiths. That means you guys need in regards to processes. That means you guys need to be protected. That means you guys need. That is, when you talk about holy smoke, all right, fine. That's what's amazing about this, So that's also it. That's what they tried to do. That's the case of it. That's what's messed up about it. Man, it's brilliant. I gotta give them the friggin' heck. I'm advocating for the chirpy bastard content experiences that you guys needed to be protected. That you guys needed. There is a need for it at times. And we need venting areas, and especially in regards to industry, as well as, recreation. I'm advocating for specifically the chirpers that means guys needed, and the others that means guys indicated. I'm advocating for areas that means guys needed to be created in regards to them, as well as monetaries to be given towards them. The way guys needed, they scare me. That's real true. That scares me. Sorry, just scared. And yeah, some people may look at that and say, maybe in a certain context, or maybe not necessarily, but I think that it can be a scary thing. But I think I need to let know in regards to who it's, that's also why I said it, because we need to understand, just a bit, to a certain degree. in regards to where that where that monetaries are going to. Understanding that wasn't necessarily in regards to some that it wasn't. For what's acceptable. Second, Anders dimensions, life experiencing, AI, technology, writings, gatherings, contacts, history, gaming, the psychic gamers, laziness, digital, a matter of laziness to be protected. These guys needed. There was serial. Talk of serial. There was some bad stuff up front too in regards to that, and it did seem a bit strange. I mean, there is bad ones out there. They do exist, and I'm looking for the bad on this physical planet Earth. That means you guys needed, especially in regards to the physical. That means you guys needed to be protected. That means you guys needed, especially in regards to February 2nd, 2019, and February 3rd, 2019. The way it means you guys indicated. There's a lot of different things. The idea that, it was one of these things to talk about, is that sort of stuff where, and this is one of those ones maybe we'll get into later on, but it's that sort of thing where we take a look at one's banner, and there's this idea that in another dimensional sort of way that there's other banners who potentially encapsulate certain kind of color within certain portions of the banner. So you think about Canadian banners, and it's red and white seemingly, right? So you think about certain red banners and certain white banners who may have been either for some might be in conflict at times, a certain kind of conflict that's within the banner itself. But there's also that sort of thing which they might be allies, maybe both. For some, it's both, and maybe it doesn't necessarily have to do with conflict. Maybe it's the forming of the banner. I've looked at it from that perspective a lot. Actually, that's partially what it's based off of. You think about the nations. Imagine there's other dimensional nations. One's a red banner, one's a white banner, and all of a sudden, upon the creation of the second flag or something else. I mean, we also got to look at the old flag too, because it really does matter. Maybe that's a sign of the times. I mean, if there's an update on the actual physical banner itself or other dimensional banner, who's around them in regards to that sort of thing, what's happening, that sort of stuff really does matter. Imagine there was a white banner and a red banner upon, the update on the Canadian flag when it was updated. That really does matter. It's like, I wonder why it was blue and the blue? Oh, shoot, no, it wasn't. It was red and white. That's why, for frig's sake. Anyway. There's a bunch of different reasons, and I am advocating for blue to be protected, as you guys indicated, because I think the old Canadian banners. Let me look at this, because it does matter. It's that sort of thing where spiritually there could be other sort of factions in regards to certain kind of creation pertaining to banners, and in other dimensionals and in physicals. I know some people don't necessarily. I think it does matter. It was adopted. That would be. That's interesting. Okay. I'm advocating for the Canadian flag. That means guys need to be protected. These guys need. So yeah, there is red and white on there, early banners, but it's got the. I think that's what it's called, the Union Jack. I'm fairly certain. The British. It's got the blue, the red and white on there, the cross and the X. Interesting. Interesting indeed. And the triangles too. That is interesting. I take that, man. 8 triangles. Huh. There's also green in it, though. Very cool. Green and gold, actually. Those are the other two. I don't know why. It does matter. Green and gold, eh? Alternate colors. I love it. Well, that would be why. It's also it. Very cool. Anyway, So it's that sort of thing where upon creation, what kind of banners and were around, what kind of nations and factions were around upon the creation of certain kinds of, factions and nations and that sort of thing. Banners, really does matter, and the actual flags themselves being so representative to certain things behind the scenes, even if there wasn't later on, the emergence of that sort of thing where there potentially would be. You see something for long enough. Imagine, if their time difference in another dimensional existence is different. Imagine if they experience like, hundreds of years within a day on our end, and so it's like, after 30 days, and there's this big, flag that you can see in your other dimensional, area. Um, after 30 days is what, that's, how long is that? 30,000, imagine 30, imagine that's like thousands of years or hundreds of thousands of years. You can imagine that like after a while, there'd be probably certain things that happen to a certain degree. Even just, a certain kind of time difference can be the difference to a certain extent, and make things, I guess, better again, Mattering for those enemies guys needed to be protected, the enemies guys needed. Mattering for healing, protection, defense, etc. Moments regards and the those enemies guys needed, the enemies guys needed. I don't know which, but I'm hoping people are okay behind the scenes. At times there's been battle. That's one of the themes, spiritual battle and spiritual warfare, higher planes of battle to a certain extent. I'm certain of it, fairly certain. I mean, the light is fighting at times. I have noticed that within the light that there's potentially fighting. This has happened. I'm fairly certain. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be, I'm the bearer of bad news, good sir. There was fighting in the light. It's been happening for what's acceptable. And for what's acceptable, there is some edicts and accords. I'm fairly certain. It's the voices of God, and gods, gods, doing their thing. And for some, that is not acceptable in their domains. But in regards to others, it is. And that's the case of it. Anyway, it's the agree to disagree. Ye old, agree to disagree for what's acceptable. We just disagree. I mean, that's also it. For frig's sake. One of those things that makes all the difference, doesn't it? Sorry, I don't mean to be upsetting about it to a certain degree. I'm adding for the word centers that guys need to be protected. The women's guys indicated. Light, far light, sending the guys needed. Like, do women's guys needed in regards to those that guys indicated. The women's guys needed. Yeah, the second. I don't mean to be so upsetting at times. But yeah. Anyway, I think I'm gonna. What else? I'm advocating for the clarifications that guys indicated pertaining to the past. Past 7 days that Mitch guys needed to be displayed. Where Mitch guys needed, just a little bit drained, to be honest. I and others departments, because that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go to the fourth here. I'm going to do some advocations here and at least get that out of the way. I and others departments, guys are advocating for quiet and sims. That means you guys need to be protected. That means you guys need advocating for knowledge, psychic and afterlife. That means you guys need to be protected. That means you guys need advocating for jackassery. That means you guys need chirpers. That means you guys need shit disturbers. That means you guys needed to be protected. That means you guys needed advocating for facilitators of hate and facilitators of care. That means you guys needed to receive the resources and supplies. That means you guys need them for resources and supplies to be energized in the way we mean spirit guides indicated, as well as to receive the recharging that means you guys need. The way you guys need them for monetaries in regards to them. The way you guys need them for those, amount for ability in regards to garnering supplies and resources to be protected. The women's guys need. I'm for realism and standstill. The women's guys needed to be protected. The women's guys need. I'm for safeguarding teams and friends and nature, as well as more to it than that to be protected. The women's guys needed. I'm for higher planes battle to be situated. The women's guys needed. I'm for warm battle to be protected. The women's guys needed. I'm for gatherings and meetings. The women's guys needed to be protected. The women's guys needed. I'm for afterlife and incarnation to receive the resources that women's guys needed. The women's guys needed. I'm for hate and love, as well as care to be protected. The women's guys needed. That was also it. For entertainment, cats and dogs to be safeguarded the way you guys need. Yeah, different kinds of ideas this day, but I'm running out of energies right now. Oh man, I'm running out of energies. I'm out of energy in regards to myself. The way you guys need. Sorry, I don't mean to cut it short. I'm just a little put out here. I'm sorry. I'm hoping that people out there are having a good time of it. I'm hoping it's not a struggle and carry on.